In this video, I wanted to discuss some of the players of the Ukraine conflict. What a complicated, mind-boggling mess. And I've tried to get my head around it over the last few days. Yes, I think it's just a distraction by the Western nations from the crumbling or imploding Corona narrative, with the conflict conveniently flaring up right at this time. I also think Putin felt compelled to intervene as too many nuclear weapons and biolabs were set up in the Ukraine, which threatened and pushed Putin to resolve this. But what is the bigger picture here? The truth is like an onion, and layer by layer you get to the core of it. The outer layer is the information the media and politicians try to make us believe, that Corona was a deadly pandemic, and now that evil Putin, like Hitler in 1939 with the invasion of Poland, viciously attacked the sovereign and peaceful Ukraine out of the blue. The second layer is what I described at the beginning, that Putin felt cornered, in particular since 2014, by the US and NATO-led puppet state Ukraine, that NATO did not keep their verbal promise from 1991 to not further expand eastward. Geopolitically, with all the sanctions and the stop of Nord Stream 2, Germany is a big loser who subsequently will rely on the expensive US gas, and if a military conflict erupts, Germany is a battlefield. This blends into the third layer, according to which Putin and Trump are the good messiah-like guys who follow the plan to expose and take apart the deep state, the World Economic Forum, the cabal, or the matrix. This is also known as the Q movement. But is autocrat Putin really the good guy? And are there really righteous wars? And what about Trump, who grabs women by their genitals, who implemented Operation Warp Speed to speed the mRNA vaccine production up, who did not pardon Julian Assange, who lives in a pompous Trump Tower or in a luxurious estate in Florida? Some even think Chinese President Xi is a good guy, somehow disregarding the social credit system and the work camps and the numerous human rights violations. So far, despite investigations into election fraud, Trump has still not returned to power. The military, or whiteheads, have not liberated the world from evil, and Putin may have slowed down the invasion of the Ukraine not to avoid human casualties, but to draw in NATO, volunteer armies from Western nations, and to expand the war into World War III. This brings me to the next level, which is even more spiritual or occult, and hence even more mysterious. According to this, there are even more powerful elites, like the Illuminati, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, who rule the world by conflict. According to this, rulers created Plan A and the opposition Plan B together to give us a choice to divide us, also called thesis, antithesis, and the resulting synthesis, or the problem-reaction-solution cycle. According to this, the Great Reset, Plan A, was the ideal outcome for them, but unlikely to achieve, so they created the Great Awakening, Plan B, a huge psyop like Trump and his movement. Even if he returns to power, some aspects of the Great Reset will still be implemented. This is like Operation Trust from 100 years ago, tactics used by Lenin and now called Q, the source. Arguments in favor of this interpretation are that MAGA, Make America Great Again, means witch in Latin and stands for the fifth degree in the hierarchy of the Church of Satan, which are the priests. A particular dark version of this evil master plan was conveyed by Albert Pike, a Masonic figure and Illuminati, in his letter to Mazzini in 1871, predicting 3 world wars to get complete control over the world. Indeed, there's evidence that Rothschild funded both sides of World War II, including Hitler, making him believe he could win this. Now it becomes biblical. There are prophecies, many in fact, which predict World War III. For instance, by the Bavarian medium Alois Irlmaier. In the 1940s and 50s, he predicted that World War III starts in late summer in Eastern Europe, when Russia starts a surprise attack on Germany and gets as far west as River Rhine. And then warplanes or drones come from the south, the desert, and stop the Red Army with toxic gas. After 3 months of a brief World War III, 3 days of darkness are predicted, along with a drastic rearrangement of the continents, maybe caused by a meteor, to prevent the war becoming fully nuclear. Even a pole switch is predicted so that the sun rises west. After this, the climate will be different. subtropical in Germany. So this would correspond to the biblical apocalypse. To get a better understanding what is actually going on, I wanted to look at some video material on the Ukrainian President Zelensky and the Russian President Putin. To figure out what's going on in their heads, we will look at their body language and non-verbal communication, because this is hard to control by the conscious mind and thus might leak essential information. Okay, let's get started. Let's look at the Ukrainian President Zelensky first.
Всім добрий вечір. Лідер фракції тут, голова Офісу президента тут, прем'єр-міністр Шмигаль тут, Подоляк тут, президент тут. Всі ми тут, наші військові тут, громадяни суспільства тут, всі ми тут. Захищаємо нашу незалежність, нашу державу. Так?
So here Zelensky and his government is presented like a gang on the street in olive green army clothes, apparently to signal how closely they work together, how unafraid they are, and also that they are unconventional. You don't see them in black suits and in government buildings. Also, I haven't taken many selfies. Anyone who tried to take them probably knows how hard it is to fit in multiple people. And here he's fitting multiple guys in the video. So it must be on a stick, like one of these tourists, and I find this very odd. We also don't see the beginning and end of the filming process, which is normally more chaotic with selfies. So there's some editing. We don't know also who they're with. Are there bodyguards? Is there army? Is there maybe even CIA? Often with selfies also you move the camera around more to see the surroundings, to show where one is. And this is also not the case here. All this indicates to me that this material has to be taken with suspicion, that this could be a wag the dog scenario, but of course I don't know.
Heroes. Today we have the 5th day of Russia's full-scale war against the people of Ukraine. We stand firm.
So here again, very typical for him, we don't see him in black suit and tie, we see him in army clothes, convince the audience that he's a down-to-earth guy, that he's fighting with the people, but it's also a kind of framing to put him in a certain light. Okay, let's move to Putin.
Уважаемые коллеги, друзья, добрый день. То, что происходит, вынужденная мера. Ну, просто не оставили никаких шансов поступить иначе. Риски в сфере безопасности создали такие, что другими средствами отреагировать было невозможно. Откровенно говоря, честно говоря, даже удивлен. Ну, не на миллиметр. Я хочу еще раз это подчеркнуть. Вынужденная мера существовала бы в санкционной политике. Тем не менее, и вот то, что Россия остается частью мировой экономики. И в этой связи, в которой мы чувствуем себя частью, мне кажется, и наш...
Okay, this all looks a bit ridiculous. Putin is a small guy, but he tries to walk tough and manly. And then we see a very big desk, far away from the audience, of oligarchs, all in face masks, socially distanced, all very quiet and obedient.
Уважаемые коллеги, друзья, добрый день. То, что происходит, вынужденная мера.
So here we see a lot. He spreads out his arms to claim space, to make himself appear bigger. He puts his head down so that looks aggressive, that protects a vulnerable throat. We can see expression of disgust, like he's smelling something awful. To me, he doesn't look like the defender of the free world. Either believes the corona narrative, which is bad news, or he pretends he's believing it. Not sure why, maybe to trick the deep state. He's not a very subtle person. He's very stoic, clumsy, rigid. So I find this unlikely.
Таким образом, согласился бы с предложением Николая Платоновича о том, что нашим, так сказать, западным партнерам можно дать последний
Impatient tapping with his fingers.
шанс с тем, чтобы предложить им в кратчайшие сроки заставить Киев пойти на мир и выполнить Минские соглашения. В противном случае
So now they don't wear face masks anymore. Interesting.
мы
A
должны
very bored look.
принять то решение, о котором сегодня говорится.
Что значит в противном
So that was interesting. He was shaking his head. He's going into pretend mode. And we see his asymmetric smile. So he feels superior, or he's looking down on the other guy, his chief spy.
Сегодня говорится.
Что значит в противном случае вы предлагаете начать переговорный процесс?
So he's toying with him. He's smiling, a contempt smile. It's a rhetorical question. He's trying to corner him.
Нет, я
Или признавать суверенитет их.
я поддержу,
Говорите прямо.
я поддержу предложение о признании.
Unbelievable. It's totally comic. This guy stumbles around, stuttering like a little schoolboy, caught doing something wrong.
Поддержу или поддерживаю. Говорите прямо, Сергей.
Поддерживаю
This was aggressive anger on Putin's face. It was a crinkling of the nose.
предложение.
Так и скажите, да или нет.
Well, he's now getting really worried, the worry lines, and he's always nodding like a little submissive slave. Again, these don't seem to be the defenders of the free world to me.
Поддерживаю предложение о вхождении Донецкой и Луганской народных республик в состав Российской Федерации.
Мы об этом не говорим, мы этого не обсуждаем. Мы говорим.
Now he's completely ridiculing him. Okay,
President Putin is angry and frustrated. Possibly feeling cornered, he summoned his top generals to publicly order them to put nuclear forces on high alert.
Допускают и агрессивные.
NATO countries are making aggressive statements with regards to our country. Therefore, I order you to transfer the deterrent forces of the Russian army to a special mode of combat duty.
For deterrent forces, read nuclear. If that sounds threatening, it's meant to.
so here again we see disgust on Putin's face, the same demeanor, this spreading out of the arms, this bullying behavior. And these guys, they look completely submissive, like sitting ducks, fearful, broken. So hunching over, head down, completely resignated. Unless the Russians are putting on a clown show to fool the rest of the world and to confuse, which I don't see evidence for. These clips show a dysfunctional power dynamics in Russia, which is clearly not good. Okay, in summary, they are no good guys, in my opinion. Yes, Zelensky is an actor, a comedian, a puppet installed by the US and NATO to start this conflict, and by recruiting a volunteer army from Western nations tries to draw in NATO to start World War III, presumably. EU countries happily follow this and send weapons, and later probably more. The German politicians, like the Green Party politician Habeck, cannot identify with Germany, and out of guilt and self-hate, presumably wants to subconsciously destroy Germany. That's what I think. Putin, who signed Russia up to participate in the fourth industrial revolution to get even more power and control, is an insecure, narcissistic person, and he strives for grandeur and revenge and wants to punish and reinstate a Soviet Union-type imperium. In his body language, I see no signs for deeper understanding, of flexibility, just rigidity and bullying. Personally, I see Trump and Putin like antichrist figures. At first they're good, like the enemy of the enemy is our friend, but ultimately mad and destructive. And yes, this planet may need some intervention. I hope you liked my analysis. Let me know in the comments what you think. So thanks for watching and talk to you next time. Bye.